Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are talking about Season 3, Episode 1 of And Just Like That.
Ooh, it's back.
It's back, it's back.
Yes.
This episode is called Outlook Good.
Yes.
From the Magic 8 Ball.
Yes. You know, things are, what's the word for it, right? You got to wonder when you start consulting the Magic 8 Ball on your life.
Yeah, things are not good.
Outlook, not good.
Outlook is not good if you're...
No.
Yes. Yeah, and things aren't looking great for Carrie.
No. Well,
now.
Tell me your thoughts high level, because I had an aha moment that I was like, God, why didn't I think of this earlier? Kind of thing. Like one of those dumb ahas. Like, God, I'm kind of a dummy.
Well, now I want to hear yours.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a big aha, but...
Well, you know what it is? It's just, and maybe everybody else is like, yeah, Tess, I figured that out a while ago. But, you know, I do know the way the show has been talked about by the executive producer, Michael Patrick King. Did you listen to the podcast?
Oh, yes.
I listened to that podcast too. So there's a companion podcast. If you check it out, it's very interesting with the show. But, you know, I knew that they were going to take Sex and the City and break it. And that's why it's called something else. And the idea of it is, this is not. And I think that, again, we were all struggling with that as collectively as a group, because I think people were like, wait, we want Sex and the City. We want that. And now you're giving us this and we don't want this. And I do think the show did play into, I mean, we've talked about this because we've covered all the others. No, we covered the second season. We didn't cover the first season. You and I covered it on our walks together as we walked around and talked about it. But, what was I talking about now? Okay. So just about this idea of taking it and breaking it, and it was different, and that there was such resistance to this. Oh, it was because it was just a lot of the heavy-handedness of everybody now needs a friend, but the friend has to be a person of color. And, you know, and just all of it. Like, now we have to have a character that's binary, and it was just a lot. And it was just, and it didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel authentic to who these women were. But then there was this thing where I watched this first episode and I was like, oh, I like this. This is really enjoyable. It was the moment in which I accepted that this is what the show is and that this is where they are in their lives. Yeah. That we kept wanting, it was just interesting because I think in my mind but I want the sex. I want all this stuff. I want all of the things that we know about the show back then. And it's like, well, you can't do that because these are different people. And I think what this third season is showing us is we're really digging into the complexity of what it means to be a middle-aged woman, like what it means to be 40, 50, 60. And I mean, obviously these women are in their 50s.
No, Sarah Jessica Parker is 60.
Okay, so she's 60 now. So
she's 60.
Yeah. So this what does it mean to be a woman of this age? And it was interesting. So I was thinking about like the anxiety that you have when you're young, and it's always this, what will happen? What will happen? You know, will I get married? Will I have kids? And I got to make it happen, or all of that. And then what happens when you get older, it's like it all feels different, right? It's not so much about this need to move forward and know what was going to happen. Time becomes, well, how am I really going to spend it? And who am I going to spend it with? And how am I going to spend it? And I think that there's just something about getting to this age where, right, all of the angst of who am I, will I meet someone, and that's gone. And things are complicated. Life is complicated, that it's not as simple as you thought. But you also at the same time have no time for BS. So it's this kind of strange place that you get into where, right, life is full of choices, and you know that you have to give some things up. So you're forced yet again to ask yourself, like, what's really important to me? It's sort of the same, it's that same sort of angsty feeling that you have when you're younger, because it's the same question I give to all my clients, which is like figuring out, what do you value? What's important to you? What do you want to do? But I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling, but I feel like I just had this epiphany, aha, of, oh, this is what the show is, and this is what they're talking about. Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't Sex in the City, and nor should it be. It would be ridiculous for these women to be running around doing the stuff that they did 25 years ago,
Mhm.
on the other side. Yeah, I mean, Charlotte is married, Carrie was married
Mhm.
until Big died.
Miranda was married.
Miranda was married. Yeah, so exactly. And so it kind of doesn't make any sense to compare the two
Yeah.
shows. Yes, these are completely different people. Everything is different. And it's kind of like it, maybe what makes people feel a little uncomfortable too is if you're our age and you're watching this and you kind of hold up a mirror to yourself,
Mhm.
you are like we are at a point where it's like there's certain things in life we know are never going to happen for us.
Yeah.
Like that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Um, and you're looking ahead, you don't have a ton of time left, and like you said, what are you going to do with it? Who are you going to spend
Mhm.
it with? Yeah, these are very profound things that these women in their 30s were not thinking about,
Mhm.
running around New York City dating. So it's a completely different show. You have to take it for what it is. And I think it seems to me the pattern of this show is that the first episode of each season is kind of stupid and you get worried. You're like,
Mm.
"Oh my god, what is this?" Cuz they,
Well, the
they
first
have.
episode of the first season was Big dying.
Yeah, but there were a lot of other things in it where it was I don't know. I just remember thinking, "What is this?" Because
Mhm.
it is, I mean, it's a whole new show. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's very hard, and they talked about Michael Patrick King has
Oh
talked about
god,
this
that guy.
ad nauseum. That I feel sorry for the other people on that podcast. They don't get to talk.
No.
Like they are just he's holding court
Mhm.
while they talk. And if they dare try to give their input and talk, he just immediately cuts them off. And I mean, my God, but you do get a lot of inside information from
Mhm.
it. And he always talks about how it's like moving the story forward. Okay, it's a
Mhm.
new season. These people they've just come from this or that situation. How are we going to get them in a position where we can go forward with where we want to take them? And I think that takes the audience a minute to adjust to.
Yes.
A lot of this, they're not picking up right where they left off necessarily.
Mhm.
Things have happened, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think I just remember it always being a little bumpy, like the first,
Mm.
until you get into the storyline and you can see where this is going.
Mhm.
Because I don't know, like with Charlotte, I mean, is her whole season going to be about, her dog? I mean,
Yeah,
it's like
I
there's
doubt
got to
it,
be
but
there's got to be more to it than that, but they have to somehow, okay, we're seeing Charlotte and her family and their environment and what's happening and where is this going to go. So anyway, it's there's some exposition happening, I think.
yeah. And I do understand, right? In the first, and Michael Patrick King talks about this on the show where,
Mhm.
you have to kind of, there are times where you have to, what did he call it? Laying pipe, where you have
Right.
to just explain what's going on, that,
Right.
Steve is gone and Brady's living with him, and, let's fill in all these blanks
Mhm.
for people. I guess I never really thought about it in terms of, right, that first episode of the season. I think that I this felt very different because I just felt like a lot was being shoved down my throat. The first couple years, a lot of, like, it's just them, quote unquote, trying to make up for the past, and it's like, this isn't
Right.
the way to do that. Like, that isn't how these things work, and it just
But they
felt
were
very
trying to make up.
performative.
Yeah, the criticism was that Sex and the City was very white. There were
Mhm.
not a lot of characters.
And heterosexual.
Right, white, heterosexual. Although there were a lot of gay men characters,
Mhm.
and Samantha had a lesbian storyline. I mean, that Charlotte tried to be a lesbian
Yeah.
once. And so it's not like it was taboo. But yeah, they thought that people criticized them because there weren't enough people of color, or whatever. So then they're like, okay, we're going to give everyone a best friend, and they're going to be a person of color or
Yeah.
non-binary or whatever. And it was too it didn't seem natural or
Mhm.
like organic.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
also I think Che just never felt it just never felt right.
no.
Like Che never
That character
quite
was strange.
worked properly. I mean,
Yeah.
there would be sections where you could really understand them and see them and like, "Oh, I understand why you're reacting the way they are." And then then the next thing that we see is this person like last season, doing cameos in bed at night and going
Mhm.
back to an old job. I mean, it's just so bizarre. The whole thing is so
Yeah.
it was just weird. They didn't and so I think it's better with Che being gone, and the fact that Che and Carrie were friends, that never made a lot of
Yeah.
sense. And
No, it made no sense. And Carrie's
so
podcast.
oh god, yeah. A
Remember that?
podcast that she so wasn't into,
Well, I don't yeah, she's, the Sex in the City, she's the sex columnist, and she's on this show where they're talking about sex, and every time it comes up, she's like, "Oh," like
Yeah.
she can't talk about sex. It's like, "Lady, you wrote a column
Yeah, this
about
was her
sex."
life.
Yes, this was your out, experimenting, doing all these things so you can write about them.
Mhm.
So none of that fit together. But um okay, so where would you want to start with Carrie? You want to
Do
start
you wanna
talking, or should
start do we start with
we
a
leave
big
her
thing or
at the end?
yeah, I guess we could. We could talk about some of the other
Let's talk ab
storylines.
Yeah, let's leave Carrie for last.
Okay.
I want to talk about Miranda
Okay.
because it, is Miranda really a lesbian? I just don't. I mean, I'm like, how did we get here? I real okay. So Miranda was always straight. She remember that episode where she needed a date. All the
Yeah.
people at her firm thought she was gay, and
Mhm.
she needed a date so she could go to this dinner at one of the partners' house. And she
Mhm.
recruited this woman who was gay to go with her, and she tried to kiss her at the end of the night, and she's like, "No, I'm straight."
Mhm.
And so, and there was never anything like that ever again. She's with Steve, and then she meets Che, and it was kind of like it I felt like Miranda was more attracted to Che the person,
Mhm.
and not necessarily the being a lesbian didn't really seem to have anything to do with it. It was like
Yeah.
she liked this person.
Mhm.
It was very what's the word for that? What's our poly family pansexual.
Pans. Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
how it kind of felt to me. So, not like I even understand what that means. But anyway, um so she has this relationship with Che that doesn't work out, and now she's a lesbian. And it just
Mhm.
doesn't it does not feel organic to me.
The
I
f
don't
the
understand.
You would feel like she would be maybe dating both men and women, maybe, or
Maybe.
kinda just trying to meet people and see how she is. Because I will say, and again, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a totally different story to all this, but in my life, I've certainly had friends, some much earlier and some a bit later, who right started dating women. And I'm thinking about one friend that I grew up with who um I think when we were around 20 started dating women. And she said to me, well, I knew back in middle school, I knew back in high school that I was attracted to women because of this and this. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, interesting. And so it is interesting that there's never been a hint of
Mhm.
attraction before. I mean, again, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel like if she really that she would have been having feelings for women this whole time.
Right.
I agree with you. It wasn't really about the fact, Che's gender. It was like who
Mhm.
Che was or
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
And that is very different. You're right. And maybe this is part of Miranda's journey this year is to figure this out. Maybe she is going to go through something and we'll see that.
Yeah,
But
cuz
I agree with you.
the whole scene at the lesbian bar that as they kept calling it, um, just felt very forced and
Mm,
cliche, and Charlotte and Carrie are saying, "Oh, look at that. She's cute. Oh,
mhm.
she's looking at you." It's like, what is happening? Like it seemed so strange to me. And then yeah, the person who's looking at her ends up being Brady's former babysitter who she didn't
Mhm.
recognize, and, it just it was felt very strange, and
But
then that
can I
oh,
ask
go
a quick
ahead.
question? Do you feel like maybe that was the point of it, that they were trying, like, so the whole idea is like, listen, Miranda's single now and Miranda's
Mhm,
dating. And
mhm,
so it's almost like, are they trying to go back into the Sex and the City world of like, there's always has to, was what Michael Patrick King called it, like the pie in the face, that there always has to
mhm,
be like this moment where you get your own comeuppance kind of
mhm,
thing, because she thought that girl was hitting on her, but no, it's really the
yeah.
babysitter. But do
Like,
you
it's
think that
meant to be silly to show that just because she's not in a relationship with Che anymore doesn't mean, or just because she had that relationship with Che doesn't mean she's a lesbian. But she's trying to but
Mhm.
that's what they're expecting her to be. I don't know. I
Maybe,
really
I
don't
guess,
know.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I had a different I was just wondering if they were showing us that it was being awkward because dating's awkward.
Mm.
And here Miranda is, and maybe this is one of the things, right? Here you are and you're in your 50s and you got married and you right,
Mhm.
you thought you weren't ever going to be dating again. And now here
Mhm.
you are dating and you're dating women, and that's different. That's what I mean, I'm just wondering if they're making it awkward because it is, to have to date again at 50.
Yeah. Okay. I
That
don't
was
know.
my 2 cents.
It will be revealed.
Yes.
And then in a very strange twist of fate, she meets Mary, played by
Y
Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, who I thought she was great. I think this was a great casting
I love
choice.
Rosie O'Donnell to death. I thought she looked beautiful with her uh gray hair and whatever. But also too, this pickup was way too easy.
Mhm.
Okay. Here's this woman who we find out in a few minutes is a nun, has
Mhm.
never had sex before, and she's able to convince Miranda Hobbs, who's a sophisticated New Yorker, to come back to her hotel room with her in about a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Literally, they flirted for about a minute and a half, and she's like, "I have a hotel room."
Mhm.
And then Miranda's like, "Okay."
Yeah, I thought that was odd. I would think that, because it was almost like, God, this is kind of like you're just going to say okay because she's the last one left
Right, you 2 were the
in the
last.
whole bar.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
Yeah.
That doesn't say much. But again, I don't know. I give the show a lot. I mean, it's they've got a limited time and they got lots of characters they've got to get through, so they can't have this whole elaborate thing. I really liked Rosie O'Donnell because I liked how she played this character. I thought
Mhm.
she did something, I thought it was really interesting that she played this character who they were kind of making fun of the whole time, but she played her in such this earnest, vulnerable way of
Mhm.
like, nothing you can say about me is going to hurt me. You know, there are things I know for sure about myself, but you've also helped me discover some other things that I've always known was there.
Mhm.
And I thank you for that. And I'm just trying to be nice. Stop making fun of me being a tourist.
Well, yeah, they
Right?
were the fact that she was a nun was not as disturbing as the fact that she was a tourist.
Yeah, and wanted to go to
Mir
the M&M store.
yeah, Miranda had to go down to Times Square to meet her. I mean, oh, God forbid.
Oh, and that she went to go see Wicked. Oh my God.
Yes.
Please, Sarah Jessica, weren't you at the premiere of Wicked? I mean, come on. Like, give me a break. But yeah, but I don't know. I thought it was sweet. I don't know where it's taking Miranda. I don't know what this is, right? Like, there's somewhere that she's going with this, so I don't know what
Mhm.
direction she's going in, but I thought it was just a good contrast of all these other characters that are, so hard, and New Yorkers, and all of that, of just
Yeah.
it
It
just
just felt sweet. It was a sweet She was a sweet person.
yeah. Well,
And, it just yeah, it was kinda like it wasn't what you would expect. Because at first I thought, "Oh, no, she's she's gonna, like, get obsessed with Miranda
mhm,
and glom onto her, and then Miranda's gonna have to figure out how to get rid of her." But she doesn't. She's just like, "Yes, I'm a nun," and in the end, she's like, "Yeah, I'm married to God. I'm not
yeah,
leaving God." Because Miranda's afraid of that this
yeah,
woman's gonna get fixated on her and wanna be with her. And she's like, "No, I'm just, I'm here enjoying New York. And
Yeah.
this is just part of my journey,
Yeah, and this is something that I felt like was inside of me, and like
Mhm.
you were part of that. And yeah, I think that it's just this attitude of, right, this instant thought of, oh, she's from Winnipeg and she's some small town nobody, and what does she know, and all of that. And it's like, no, actually she's probably healthier and more
Mhm.
aware of things than any of you people. So,
Mhm.
right, like these judgments of how we assume things. And again, I think this is also, again, to come back to being in your 50s. I think the Rosie, like if Rosie played a character that was 25 or 30, maybe she would have glommed on to
Mhm.
Miranda. But 50, 60-year-old Mary is like,
Mhm.
listen, lady, I've been around the block. Like, I, I'm not going to worship you now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a teeny bopper
Yeah.
anymore. Anyway.
Yeah, well, and I wonder, are we going to see Steve and Brady? They quickly told us they were somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I wonder if we'll.
I don't think we are, because the character, like the Brady character, no one ever really liked him. He wasn't terribly popular, and I really think they made him kind of jerky. So I think,
Yeah.
but everyone loves Steve, but it was just a little bit pathetic with Steve at the end. You're just like, oh God, you just want to see him go get a life or
But
something.
he did. He got a girlfriend because
Oh, that's right. He did have
remember
a girlfriend, the one that
she
liked
found
Whole Foods or
condoms or
something. Yeah.
something in the house. So I think Steve has moved on. Definitely. And I guess Brady and um is it Lily?
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte's oldest daughter. I guess they're not a thing anymore. Because
No,
remember
were
at
they
the
a
end,
thing by the end?
yeah, remember
Okay.
there was a party at Charlotte's house and they were sneaking around making out in the
Okay. Yeah.
bedroom or something. So I guess they broke up because Lily has a crush on someone else.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I think
That's Miranda.
that's Miranda. That's what she's doing. Now, here's another now this one, I don't know, I'm so disappointed in Seema because you
Oh,
can
yeah,
you can
this was
tell
weird.
you can tell they're trying to make her like the Kim Cattrall,
Mhm.
like sexy siren, powerful businesswoman. I don't want a man, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. And this thing about her, doing all this stuff for this guy, Ravi, who I don't, last season he seemed much more, I mean, he's always been like a jerk, but last
Mhm.
season he felt more appealing. Now he just seems like who is this guy,
Yeah, it felt very convenient, almost like they wanna get rid of him, so let's wrap up the story, so let's make him
Mhm.
awful,
Mhm.
and so and then she can break up with him. But I agree with you, because I don't understand who Seema is. I
Mhm.
really don't. I think she talks out of both sides of her mouth, right? If Kim Cattrall, that the Samantha Jones didn't need anybody, she didn't need a man. She didn't, she was the sexy siren, and she really owned it. And there were
Mhm.
times where she would, like have these moments of, maybe do I want something else? But that's what it is. Seema came on the scene very much like, I want to meet someone. And, and there's always with Seema been a lot of resentment towards the fact that she hadn't ever met
Mhm.
anybody, and that there's a lot of anger and resentment that she feels about having to, like, being a single woman in her 50s. And here's the thing, it's like, but that goes against who you are and what you stand for. Like,
Mhm.
you just gave us this whole speech at the end of breaking up with Ravi about how, like, I choose me. And it's like, but you never choose, you choose yourself in a lot of different ways, but it's always, it seems like your happiness or how you define yourself really does seem to be around whomever you're dating, Seema. That's what it seems like to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, and I remember in the first season or two, she'd made comments about her parents, that she has this cultural pressure on her
Hmm.
to be married, and she was going to some family event and
And lied to
the
her family about having a long-term
yeah, a date.
boyfriend.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, she's got a lot to work through, but
But I don't think that's how they see the character. I think that's part of the problem, is that
mhm.
the person that you're showing us is not the person that you're writing for. So it just all feels inauthentic
Mhm.
and a little off.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, and this stuff, the silly stuff with her, falling asleep, smoking, and um, and the FaceTime call, and I don't know, it just felt her whole story. This episode just felt so silly. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing to this woman?
Yeah, yeah, and just, and sort of I don't know if they're doing this to juxtapose her with Carrie and how the two of them are handling having these quote unquote long distant relationships.
Mhm.
But yeah, they really made Ravi pretty awful. And God, and what's with the scarf? Every goddamn scene, the man's wearing like a little Scooby Doo
Yeah.
Fred scarf. But just all of it, scouting the locations. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like he would have known. Like, he would have known. But again, and I've said this before, which again, you know, if you what someone does for a living really does define a big part of them. And this guy is a movie director of big movies. And quite
Mhm.
frankly, he's always, if he's shooting a movie, he's going to be this wrapped up. Like, this is who he is, Seema. Like, this is the relationship. So, and maybe that's her big aha moment at the end. But it's like, again, as a 50-year-old, like, I feel like you should, don't you see this? That if you're gonna be with someone who has a big job, an important job, someone who makes a lot of money, has a lot of demands, they don't have a ton of time for other things.
Mhm.
It's a little bit like acting like, oh well, I want you to be a CEO of this company, but I also want you to be home every day at 5 o'clock. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he really kind of wooed her and promised her, and yeah, she didn't see the well, but she in the last season, she was pointing out these red flags about
mm-hmm,
him, but then she kind of ignored it when he said all the right things, and
yeah. So
so
yeah,
anyway,
I don't,
here
I
we
don't.
are.
Yeah. I mean, and again, even the end of the relationship where they do it like a movie,
Mhm.
even that, like her final line of um this movie ending and her saying, I lost track of me, this, none of that, like, that didn't even feel like it landed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they're going to do with her character, cuz I think she's been flip-flopping around.
yeah, I
Mm.
like this. I forgot her. I like this actress. I do. I think she's very, very talented. But I just, you know, LTW, and I guess we're not going to get Miranda's friend back. I
Yeah,
forgot
I
her
think she's
name.
gone. Oh
I
yeah, she
liked
went
her.
off to at the end of last season. She said she was going off to do some for some job or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and she like was going to hook up with that guy from CSI, the cute one.
Oh yeah, at the dinner party,
Yeah. So
Carrie's
what?
dinner
Oh
party.
no, I missed him. That's too
Well,
bad.
I think she's off with him somewhere,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that they made her and they made LTW their own people, and I think that's the problem with not having Samantha there is people keep trying to fit someone into that slot, and so Seema becomes like sort of the closest one.
Mhm.
But I think they would have done a lot better if they sort of made her different, like moved her kind of away from any similarities to Kim Cattrall, to Sam
Yeah.
Jones.
Yeah, you cannot replace
No,
Kim
you
Cattrall.
cannot.
I mean, there's just
No,
no way.
no.
Well, okay, so speaking of LTW,
Yes.
huh, in a way her story, like, it's always starts out real boring and then it gets real serious.
Mhm.
Because look, she and Herbert, they are kind of a boring, they're just like this family,
Mhm.
regular family, and um Herbert is still running for comptroller.
Yes. Now, isn't this the same job that season 3, episode 1 with John
Mm,
Slattery from Mad
I think
Men?
he was
Wasn't
like
he
a
a comp controller? Wasn't that the same job
I
that
think
he
he was
ran
more
for?
like a city council person.
Oh, I thought he was a comptroller too. I'm like, boy, is there one job to run for in all of New York? The two of them have to run for the same political job, right?
Because isn't comptroller sort of, isn't that a word for like the
Managing money.
treasurer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm just looking this up real quick. Oh, a senior accounting role that manages an organization's financial reporting and accounting procedures. So yeah, you're doing that for the city. You're the
Mhm.
city accountant.
Sexy.
Yeah, sexy job. So he wants that job. She's working on this is it a documentary or
Yeah, it's a
parenting?
documentary PBS picked up.
Oh yeah, it's like a Ken Burns style
Yeah.
documentary, PBS. Okay. So it's about supposed to be about women who are African American women who are unsung heroes, and she's put all this
Mhm.
time and effort into picking these women who did a lot and didn't get the recognition of the public.
Mhm.
And so she's doing this presentation to the producers or whoever of the documentary, and they want her to substitute one of these ladies with Michelle Obama,
Mhm.
which Michelle Obama is, of course, historical and wonderful, but she's not exactly unsung, an
Mhm.
unsung hero. We all know who she is.
Yes.
And I'm, I heard someone else say this in talking about this episode, because at the end of the episode, she finds out that Herbert has someone on his staff, his campaign staff, who used to work at the Obama White House. And it's like, oh
Mhm.
my God, are we going to get a Michelle Obama cameo?
Oh.
Is this what this
Oh,
is
I didn't
leading
even
up to?
think about that. I didn't even go there. You might be right.
That would
Hmm.
be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Well, I want to go back to this whole thing because they were talking about this on the companion podcast about
Hmm.
husbands and calling, and I
Hmm.
think what they're trying to make this comment, and we talk about it on the show a bit of right what it means to be if you look at someone like LTW who is married and has a family and has a career that even though both her and Herbert have these big careers, she's the one cooking dinner, she's the one
Right.
planning the party for Chauncey, she's the one running around getting the kids stuff together that it does, even though she has this, it always falls to women. And I think I was trying to understand this is what they're trying to say, but that whole scene where he calls her and says,
Yeah.
well, am I cool? I think they obviously wanted to show like, oh, see, men are babies and see how he's such a baby. And in the companion podcast, they made this comment about almost they said something about like this is sort of how husbands act. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think this is how, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, this is not a good example of that. Like, I don't know. Steve doesn't call me at all during the day.
Yeah.
He's not calling me, asking me these questions. Like, I just don't think that that's sort of how it is. I think it would have been much better if it was shown in a different way of just, and I think we did see that in different ways from her last year.
Yeah. He
So,
knew she had this presentation.
yeah, apparently they were 45 minutes late, so he didn't
Well,
like he thought the meeting
still,
was
yeah.
over, but at the same time, you're kind of like, I just don't think I don't know, that didn't ring true for me with Herbert personally.
Yeah. I don't think Herbert is that clueless and that insecure. I mean, this is a man who had a very successful business in the financial and
Mhm.
now he's running for city comptroller. He's not a baby.
Yeah.
He's an accomplished man who can take care of himself, and he would not be calling her in the middle of the day on a day that he knows she has this important thing going on asking, "Am I cool?"
Mhm.
How dumb.
Yeah.
Who writes this? Is this a Michael Patrick King idea? Because
I
I
don't
can't
know.
I can't tell sometimes when they talk about uh because he works on every single episode. They
Mhm.
have several writers who so it'll be like one of the other junior writers will
Mhm.
work on it, and then I think he comes in and he has the final say and he puts his input. And
Mhm.
I just think that his hand is so heavy on all of these
Mhm.
stories, and you can tell sometimes when he doesn't get it right because he is a gay man. He is
Yeah.
not a middle-aged a woman, married
Yeah.
woman. It's just
Well,
different.
yeah, and that's very interesting because he was talking about this in the companion podcast, the Rosie O'Donnell thing, where he talks about like being a gay man and not feeling like you could be seen and heard and what that's like and having to fake things and being able to say I knew this part of me was inside of me this whole time. Thank you. It's interesting because that's something he deeply related to, and that was a very kind, vulnerable like moment of the
Mhm.
show. And so this is, I think, is such a good example of him. Apparently you're not listening to these because there's two other women that have been doing the show, writing and producing the shows since the beginning, like you.
Mhm.
Um, and they're also in this podcast, but it doesn't feel like their own perceptions of what it's like to be a 50-year-old woman, even though they're both 50, are taken
Mhm.
into consideration.
Yeah, that's the sense I get. They're just kind of there, but he has the final
Hmm.
say on everything. Um, so what else happens with and so
Yeah.
then they have that fun is it like a fundraising
Hmm.
party, and Herbert is singing with his college a cappella group.
Yes.
And of course, this is Christopher, I'm blanking on his last name, but was played George Washington in the original
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
So he can sing,
Oh
so he
yeah.
finally got to sing.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. Don't know where I don't know where their story's going.
Yeah.
Maybe
They kind
more
of.
of this battle between the competing careers and who's, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
they got a lot going on.
Well, yeah, but I do also, because they said, "Oh, well, this year with LTW, we're going to explore this work and life thing." I'm like, "Haven't we been exploring this the whole
Yeah.
time? Hasn't this been this issue that's been
This
going
has
on
been the
since the
whole
beginning?"
yeah.
So it's a little bit like, and now we're talking about it. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I feel
Anyway.
like that's always been their storyline, and yeah, and LTW always trying to have to, she has to walk this line with her mother-in-law, and
Mm-hmm.
um that's a big part. Yeah, I mean, I feel like theirs is really one of the more normal storylines,
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
so
So let's talk about Charlotte really quickly, but you're right. I was thinking about this where it's like, is this, I understand that if you have these heavy duty storylines that you need to have something for some levity. I get that.
mhm.
But it feels a little bit like this is way too, I don't know, leaning to one side. This is kind of nothing. And one of the things they were talking about in the companion podcast was, oh, well, women, there's all this pressure, right, to be perfect and to do this and that. And there's even pressure for your dog, right? Because there's such, and I do think they're speaking to that dog judgment, like judgment about your dog. And there is that, I mean, I have dogs. There's a lot of like having to apologize for your dog's behavior,
Mhm.
right? You're seen if your dog's out of control, you're seen as a bad owner, you're seen, and so I do get all of that, but I just don't really like, if you want to talk about women and struggling with judgment and balancing, and Charlotte's also like LTW, married and with kids and has a full-time job,
Mhm.
like that whole thing too, right? Like that's something you can explore that in different ways, talking about the pressures. But the dog, that it was just weird.
Yeah, maybe I think they were also trying to weave in the comedy of, everyone knows someone like this dog lady, who
Mm-hmm.
accused Richard Burton of attacking her dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was wrongfully accused.
Yes.
She wants Charlotte to pay for an MRI for her
Because
dog.
all English bulldogs look the same. There's a real race issue in all of this.
Yes.
You
There's
know what?
discrimination happening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So, well,
profiling.
and some of it is very true of like her going to the doggy daycare and that guy being like, "Oh no," just like, "Oh my god," and now he's involved in this drama with the dog. And yeah, there are a lot, for a lot of people, like their dogs are their lives, and this is
Yeah.
big drama and all that. I felt like that was real, but it just didn't. I felt like, God, why are you doing Charlotte dirty like this? That's how it felt to me. Like she can handle more than this.
Yeah, I think this was just she got to this episode, she got to have the funny kind of goofy storyline, and
Mhm.
we see Harry is still, telling dumb dad jokes, and
Yeah.
we have Lily, who is just insufferable. She really is.
You think she's insufferable?
Remember how she's so insufferable. We talked
Mm.
about this last season, how insufferable she was. Um she really is. She's just, and then Rock is lecturing her about not ordering from Shein,
Mhm.
fast
Breaking down the
fashion.
boxes.
Yes. And she's just so snooty and snotty, and apparently she has a crush on this adult man. Is she still in high school? I don't even know how old
Yeah, I
Lily
didn't
is.
understand what this, ate, right? Like,
This guy who's a dancer for the New York Ballet is the
who's 20.
20. Yeah, so I don't even know if she's 18. Not really sure. And yeah, so they go, the girls and Carrie and Anthony and Giuseppe all go to see this friends and family performance at the Met, and that was kind of cool to see. I
Mhm.
thought brought back memories of
Yeah.
the ballet. My daughter was a ballerina for many years. Um,
Yes. But yeah, that whole thing is weird, and I don't know. I don't know where they're going. But this actually will lead us right into Carrie and Aiden, because it was Anthony who said
mhm.
something to Carrie at the ballet that created his own story, like the storyline that involved him.
That
So,
involved Aiden,
no, no,
or
no. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, Anthony didn't have much to do, but this was
oh,
his one
right,
thing, was he was going to be the voice
asking
of the
about
audience,
right.
basically, and say all
Well,
the things
no,
that we're all thinking.
yeah. So I didn't really remember this from the last episode of last season, but apparently, not only did Aiden say we can't see each other for 5 years, but we can't even speak for 5 years.
Mhm.
And so they're writing each other like blank postcards, which
Yes.
Carrie's trying to present it in this way of this is like romantic and cool, but it's like
Mhm.
she can only pretend for so long. I mean, she's in this big, huge house that
Yes.
she purchased alone. So she's not even unpacked. I don't even see any furniture.
Because I think this has all just happened, right? The way they talk about it, it's only been a couple months, right,
Mhm.
later. But I remember writing down, "My God, this house is huge." And then on the companion
Mhm.
podcast, they're like talking about, well, we did that intentionally to show everybody how huge this house is,
And
just how
she's alone.
ginormous. And the fact that she purchased it thinking that it would be a family of 5
Yeah.
living
I
there.
know, I'm really mad at Aiden.
Yeah, this is effed up. This
I'm
episode did
I'm
not make him look good at all.
no,
And it
in
doesn't
in
feel
many
like
ways.
Aiden. It doesn't feel like Aiden. It really doesn't.
No, because look, I understand your child is having issues. The child has another parent that
Mhm.
they're living with full time. You can go and visit the child. You can get the child into therapy. I- He'll grow out of it. Whatever's happening, he's just going through something. I mean, this is so severe and just
Mhm.
stupid. Oh, I have to. And also, what is this 5 years? The kid is like 15 or something. So I don't, or maybe
Yeah,
I don't get it.
this
I
is
don't
one
get it.
thing that I thought was, when they were talking about this, the companion podcast, is they were talking about like this 5-year thing, and that all these writers act like, "Isn't this crazy? Isn't this nuts?" It's like, listen, you fuckers wrote it.
Yeah,
You wrote it, so
yes.
why don't you explain it to
Explain
us?
yourselves.
Because I could see, to me, I think it would be more realistic, a year, 2 years. That's still a long time, right? Because if he had said 1 year or 2 years and we can't talk, or the talking can be limited, that was still going to create problems. That was
Mhm.
still going to bring things up. And so that's the whole thing. It's like, but Aiden has always been someone who is pretty direct, pretty honest. Like, I just don't, this doesn't feel like Aiden. It's almost like something Mr. Big would do. Like, he would find an
Yeah.
excuse to run in the opposite direction, but that's
Yeah.
never been who Aiden is. So is this who he is now? Or you know what I mean? I always felt like Aiden was a lot more thoughtful. And he's always been known to be a lot more evolved.
Yeah. No, you're right. This is something like, remember when Mr. Big called her and said, I'm moving to Napa,
Mhm.
and he just leaves. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something he would do. Yeah, this makes no sense whatsoever. It is so drastic. It is not necessary. He claims, that she's the love of his life. He wants to be with her. Well, this is not the way to do it. Like,
Mhm.
you can be with her and take care of the needs of your child both at the same time. It's not a either or. There's no reason why it should be an either or. And frankly, I can't believe Carrie is even putting up with this. I think it's like she's so shocked that she doesn't know
Mm.
what to do. Because I felt like in a lot of this episode, she just sort of seemed like, she didn't really want to talk about it.
Mhm.
She's kind of ignoring it. She's walking around in very strange clothes. I mean, what was that Holly Hobby outfit she was wearing in Central Park with the big
Oh, the infamous
the
hat that
hat
everyone was
and
doing
like
memes
and
with.
also a patchwork sort of weird
Yeah,
dress?
I don't know. I mean, and that's one of the things about the show that I love is that they do, it's just something I would never wear, you wouldn't, right? Like, but it's kind of cool. Like it's kind of like, oh, this is interesting. This is
Yeah,
cool. This
I
is a
don't know about
look.
this one. Yeah,
This is a look, and it's, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of her style. I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad.
I thought it was weird. The hat,
Um,
especially. I
yeah, I
mean,
just felt like they were doing a kind of typical Sex in the City of taking something simple and making it huge. Just the way everything
mhm.
always speaks about the clothes. In the first episode, we see her in that see-through, like, because it's all
Yeah,
romance and love, and the see-through
flowy and
gauzy with the
flowery.
flowers. That's all
Yeah.
about, and it felt very old school Gramercy, right? Like, let's go
Mhm.
back in time kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, that's what was so frustrating about listening to that podcast. I was like, but you guys created this problem for
Mhm.
yourselves. So can you please explain where this is and where you get this from? Because is there anybody ever, like, usually they say, oh, I had a friend and this friend did this, or like they take stories from their own
Mhm.
lives. So there is a truthful thread in there. But this one, it was like, please tell me the friend that you know where this happened. It just it feels so out of character. It needed to be more nuanced. Because if it was new, if
Yeah.
she had said, "Give me a year, I'm not going to visit you at all, but we can talk and we'll talk here and there," that's a little different. That's very nuanced. So now the nuances of him calling her for phone sex, like
Mhm.
these little small things that are so huge now, it's like small, but really that's what would do a person in, is the chipping away, the
Yeah.
chip, 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 not these big things. So
Well,
anyway,
yeah, before we get to the phone
yeah.
sex, there were a couple of clues. So at the very end of last season, like I think it was the last scene where she and Seema went to some island. They're sitting on a beach
Mhm.
and Carrie says, or maybe Seema says, one of them says something about 5 years. I got to serve 5 years of hard
Mhm.
time or something like that. And then Carrie says, or I might get time off for good behavior.
Mhm.
Then she says, when she's talking to Anthony, when Anthony confronts her about it in this episode,
Mhm.
um, she says, 5 years, yeah, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think she kind of knows that this isn't possibly they're not going to go 5 years without
Mhm.
speaking. I think she knows, but she's trying to just let Aiden figure this out himself
Mhm.
in his own way and time. Because I think if she knows that if she starts engaging with him about it, it's just going to make it worse. And then there's going to
Mhm.
be like a fight. And remember when he first told her, she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm here again."
Mhm.
So I don't know. I feel like she's taking this path of least resistance, knowing that he's not going to last 5 years, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
He
Their
calls
last
her
5
up.
minutes.
He calls her up after a few beers and wants to have phone sex, and then
Mhm.
here we have one of the cringiest
Oh god.
scenes
Oh
in
god.
television history.
Yeah, I had to look away a few times. I'm like, "Oh, I really like John Corbett. I don't need to see him licking his palm." Like, no
That
one needed to see
was
that.
awful. That was awful.
And
And she was
again,
awful too. She was like, cuz she's she's not into this,
mhm.
and
Yeah,
she's trying to play along. She's trying to No, it was, and he's so drunk he doesn't even notice that she's
Yeah.
not
Well,
into it.
again, doesn't feel like Aiden. Feels like something
No.
big would do, or one of these other guys. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't that whole thing didn't feel like him at all. But I felt like it was a good I think it was like a good plot point or sort of thing that would happen that you could see in like a true long distant relationship. Because right, the biggest thing about long distance relationships is that because these two people aren't together, that their lives are moving in different places and that it's hard to get on the same page at the same time.
Mhm.
Right? So they would have it wasn't would have been more successful if the two of them were struggling to schedule phone sex.
Right.
Like they kept missing each other or they kept, that to me, I think is a much more realistic, like, how are we going to make this work? We can't even find times to have a phone call together. That's much more
Mhm.
realistic than this because this felt cruel, really cruel.
Yeah, and I Sarah Jessica Parker to me has I don't think, at least on camera, she doesn't come off as a very sexual person,
No,
even though yeah, I
she
mean,
never
like,
has.
she never has, and when like, the couple times we'd see her, like, try to passionately kiss with Big,
Hmm.
never see always seemed awkward, didn't didn't seem right. This whole thing, she's not able to, like, be sexy
Hmm.
she's not like a Nicole Kidman or someone who can, like, turn it on and be real. No, she it's awkward.
Yeah.
Very awkward. Is
Well, and we hear from Michael Patrick King that this is sort of the first time the character of Carrie has ever, right, had phone sex. Like we have not seen that from her. And we haven't seen, these are things that we've never seen of her. So it did feel a little jarring of like, oh, we're
Mhm.
we're we're going here. But you're right. Um I've never gotten the sense from Carrie that this is like, and again, that's why it's so weird that she's a sex columnist.
I know. I know. She that's the irony here.
Yeah,
She can't even talk about it on her podcast,
yeah, yeah. Or in the
let alone
privacy of her own home.
yeah, let alone act it out,
Yeah,
and, yeah, what are we doing here?
yeah. But that whole thing, it just didn't feel like him. And then what did she mean by our sex life is the most honest thing about us? What does
I
that
don't
mean?
know.
So
I don't know what that means.
that's weird. What? Okay.
Is it that their sex life is it almost makes it sound like it's the best thing about their relationship.
Yeah, are you guys lying to each other about everything else?
Yeah, is everything else just I mean, I don't know, I mean, because there was cheating, there was like, remember how she didn't really wanna live with him?
She got engaged but didn't really wanna marry
Yeah,
him,
exactly.
and she didn't. I
Uh,
mean, again, we see this so clearly. She lives in New York. He is living in Virginia with 3 kids. Like,
mhm,
they wanted different things. They want different lives. Like, that would have been much more interesting, and would have been much more interesting when if you did something where it's a little bit like she now has to be this mother or,
mhm.
right, someone who's never been very motherly and ever
Yeah, it
really
would have been
wanted kids or any of that. That would be much more interesting.
yeah, like, if because she bought that house so that his kids could come and stay
Mhm.
there. And yeah, watching her being a step parent or whatever, that would have been much more interesting than this.
Mhm.
So yeah, this really makes me worried for all the reasons we just pointed out. They are really just not compatible. Apparently, when they're together, they have great sex.
Mhm.
But everything else, they have different ideas about,
Yeah.
yeah, like how to live, where to live, whatever.
So this is one thought that I had that is, and again, I don't even think the producers are at all thinking about this, but I
Hmm.
do think again back to my original thing about what does it mean to be in your 50s is that by the time you get to this age, you've had certain people in your life for decades. Like
Hmm.
decades and decades. And so it's not this little thing of well, we dated and it didn't work, but it's sort of like, well, wow, I've known you, for 20, 30 years now. And I
Mhm.
think that, right, I think that's what Carrie's alluding to a little bit with Aiden of we have this long history together. We
Mhm.
know each other really well. For whatever reason, we keep leaving each other, but we keep coming back together again. So I do wonder if Carrie is sort of over indexing or believing or feeling like, I know this person and I know he's always going to be, like, we'll get through this, or this is whatever the
Mhm.
next thing is. But again, she wouldn't be consulting the magic 8 ball if she felt so secure within that. It was interesting because she's mad at Anthony for bringing these things up, but at the same time, she's like, she knows it's the truth. And the show where you talk to your friends about everything, now you're not talking about this. So
Mhm.
does the, so anyway.
I
And
think she
then,
doesn't really know what to say because, like she said, I can't believe I'm here again.
mhm.
You know.
So essentially the kitchen door, the back kitchen door is the represents the relationship because it kept going off.
Yeah, the alarm.
Her back, even though there's nothing wrong with it, it's been checked and it's been looked at, it keeps mysteriously going off at
Mhm. And the
various
password
times.
is Carrie and Aiden.
Yes. So
So not so subtle.
not
Not
so subtle.
not so subtle.
No.
Oh boy. Well,
No, and the other thing is one person I saw this on Vulture where they were talking about Aiden. They're like, God damn it, Aiden, you can't get out of bed with Wyatt and just walk into the other room. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you needed to care for him like he's sleeping. You could have gotten up. And I think that's a good
mhm.
example of like, you know what, Aiden, you actually could have. And I believe the
Right.
Aiden that we know would have. That's the thing. Big wouldn't have. Other men wouldn't have. Berger probably wouldn't
Mhm.
have. Right? Like other characters wouldn't have.
Mhm.
But he would have.
Well, maybe that was the old Aiden.
Yeah, maybe this is Aiden 2.0 and he's like, I'm an asshole now. I'm going to be
Well,
Mr.
because
Big.
when you think about it, he came back into her life not that long ago, what, a few months
Mhm.
ago, and it has been a long time. He went off and, it's been over a decade.
Yeah.
And, she hasn't, so she thinks she knows him, but
Mm.
she's just operating off of, the Aiden she knew when they broke up.
Mhm.
And he could be much more selfish now,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
true. He could be.
And, maybe that's why it didn't work out with the wife. I don't know. And maybe this thing about going for 5 years is he's trying to overcompensate because
Mhm.
he maybe wasn't the greatest husband and father.
Or he
And then
feels guilty for getting divorced.
yeah, because it was a real overreaction. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus, what the kid like took some mushrooms and drove, uh, didn't even drive. I mean, was driving on their property, not even
Mhm.
like on a city street. And God, I mean, it was like
Yeah,
a stupid teenage thing. I mean,
cuz
he's acting like it's.
honestly, if you're so worried about your kids' drug use and their behavior, technically you wouldn't have just put him in counseling. He would have gone away to a program.
Mhm.
Like you all would have put like every and therapists would tell you, I think your kid needs to get clean and so or your kid needs to get out
Mhm.
of wherever he is or something needs to happen. If you're worried about him and he's suicidal and he's all these things, they would have put him in a program. Like this
Yeah.
makes no sense. Like now your teenage son is sleeping next to you. It's like because he had a
Yeah.
rough night. Like I just that doesn't feel real.
Yeah, and like you coming back and living there full time, that's going to solve all his problems. I don't think so.
Mhm.
Gonna
Yeah.
take more than that. But
Yeah, the
I
whole
don't
thing
know.
is
I'm
so
excited.
weird. Yeah, I
I'm
mean, listen,
excited.
I love this stupid show. I've now
No matter
re
what we say, we'll never stop watching it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I think now that I've learned to let go of the past, it took me a few years, but sort of letting go of what I thought or what I assumed it should be. And this is a show where people do, I think one of the reasons people feel so attached to it is partially, the marketing of it all or the way in which the conversation came about because this show was all about I'm a Carrie, I'm a Samantha, I'm a little
Mhm.
Charlotte and a little Miranda, I'm a little this and that. So when you create these campaigns around this, when you talk about people that way, then yeah, people do feel like they own the characters.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
anywho.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with episode 2. If you like our podcast, please support us. Please subscribe to the podcast. Also, you can leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you go rate things. And if you really enjoy us, we also have a Patreon, and you can get all of our free episodes ad-free. We do a weekly bonus episode, and then for our higher tier, we do monthly bonus true crime and ask us anything episodes. And we are on YouTube now. You
Yes.
might be watching us on YouTube.
Yes. Very
I don't
exciting.
know. We're now on YouTube, and we're on all the other social media platforms as well: Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok. So please check us out, and hope to see you back soon.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.